The Story of the Herd, a Schleich movie. Once there was a young stallion named Midnight. He had just been separated from his mother and on a journey to find his own place to live and his own herd. He hoped to find some mares soon to start his own herd. But for right now, he just walked and walked from plain to plain, trying to find somewhere to live. One beautiful morning, Midnight was grazing, and suddenly lifted his head. He saw a beautiful mare just across the meadow, looking at him, and he was looking at her. She began to walk over to Midnight. Midnight at first was a little worried. He backed away. Then when the mare walked closer, he realized that he shouldn't be worried because this mare was looking for a herd just like him. He decided to allow this mare into the herd. He whinnied and kicked to tell the mare that if she'd like to, she could be a part of his herd. The mare walked closer to Midnight, then whinnied back to him. And his mare also kicked. Now he had a mare. They grazed together for a while. And suddenly lifted their heads. Midnight looked around. There was a girl far in the distance, and she was riding a horse. The girl and her horse began to walk closer to them. Once they got only a foot away from Midnight and his mare, Midnight whinnied at his mare to run away. And since Midnight was the leader of the herd, of course the mare ran away without hesitating. The mare ran into some bushes on the other side of the field, then hid in them. Now that the mare was safe, Midnight didn't know what to do. He wanted to fight, but he knew that the best thing to do was to run. So he did. He ran farther and farther away, past his mare, but the horse and the girl on his back following close behind him. Midnight didn't want to go too far away from his mare, so suddenly tried to turn around. But as he was turning around, suddenly a rope got thrown around his neck. Midnight began to jump and kick. But the girl had a very tight grip on the rope. Midnight didn't know what to do, and he couldn't get away. He reared and bucked, hoping that would help him get away. But all that did was make the girl grasp the rope tighter. Soon the girl tied the rope around the other horse's neck that she was riding. That way Midnight could not get away. The girl and the horse began to walk. Midnight tried to stay right where he was, but the rope got tighter and tighter around his neck until he had to go with the girl and her horse. Midnight began to walk, but of course kicking, bucking, and rearing. few minutes later, Midnight saw some fence pieces only a few feet away. Midnight tried his hardest to get away, but this horse was much stronger than Midnight. This horse stayed put while Midnight struggled to get out of the rope. Suddenly the girl jumped off the horse. Walked over to Midnight and said, "It'll be all right." She untied the rope from the other horse's neck, then quickly grabbed the rope and held on tight. Midnight was scared, bucked, kicked, and made a few noises. But again, all it did was make the girl grasp onto the rope even tighter. The girl pulled on the rope hard, and Midnight had no choice but to go with her. The girl was leading him into a pasture. The girl led Midnight into the pasture, then quickly let go of the rope, grabbed the rope and took it off Midnight's neck, ran out, and closed the fence before Midnight could get out. With that, the girl said, "I'm sorry, boy, but, well, my job is to capture wild horses. I know how you feel, but you'll find a good family." And with that, walked off. Midnight didn't know what to do. He reared and tried to get out, but, well, it was just too hard. Midnight called to his mare. His mare heard his call from miles away and came running out of the bushes to help Midnight. Then suddenly stopped about a foot away from Midnight. Then the mare kept walking until she was right next to the fence. Quickly unlocked the fence with the chain on the outside. Then Midnight ran out. Midnight took one last look at the unlocked gate, then looked at his mare. His mare looked at him. Midnight reared, and then began to run. And of course, Midnight being the leader, his mare ran with him. When the girl saw that the fence was open and Midnight was gone a few hours later, she said, "Well, it's probably for the best. I didn't want to capture that horse anyway." Then she walked away. Midnight was free again with his mare. One morning, around a month later, Midnight and his mare were grazing, like every morning, and suddenly lifted their heads again. Midnight had smelled something. It smelled very familiar, like another horse. Midnight whinnied at his mare. And with that, they set off to investigate this new smell. A few minutes later, Midnight and his mare stopped. They saw another mare a few feet away. The mare walked closer to them, for she was looking for a new herd herself. She walked very close and got greeted by Midnight and Midnight's mare. Midnight told the mare that she could be part of the herd now if she wanted, by rearing and bucking. The mare understood and decided to join Midnight's herd. The mare walked over, and now Midnight had two mares. Midnight saw that one of his mares was acting a little bit different. And one morning when Midnight got up, sure enough, had a very cute little filly. Midnight walked over to investigate this new horse. He gave the new horse a few sniffs, then left the new filly to nurse. The new mother decided to name her filly Clover, for her filly loved to eat clovers, and the mother just thought that was a very adorable name. They all ran together day by day. Midnight, his 2 mares, and his new adorable filly. One morning, while Midnight and his mares were grazing, they all lifted their heads. Well, the mares lifted their heads because Midnight did, but Midnight smelled that other horses had been here. He was worried that he was in another horse's territory, and of course didn't want to start a fight. So he whinnied at his mares to tell them to go. And of course the mares followed his orders and went with him. But before they got too far away, they saw 2 mares in the distance. Midnight wasn't sure if they were part of a herd, if they wanted to join Midnight's herd, or came up to Midnight because they wanted to fight. But the mares looked very kind because they were. Midnight decided to go up with them. But first, he whinnied at his mares to tell them to stay right where they were. And of course, all of his mares whinnied back. And the little filly too. With that, Midnight walked off. He walked right up to the new mares because he was very brave and he wanted a few new mares in his herd. After all, he hadn't had a new mare in his herd for almost a year now. One of the mares backed away and looked scared, but the other one went closer. Once the mare that backed away saw that Midnight was not going to fight, she walked closer to Midnight also, until they were all right next to each other. The 2 mares whinnied to ask Midnight if they could become part of his herd. Midnight, of course, whinnied back and kicked to tell them yes. When Midnight and his 2 new mares returned to the herd, Midnight whinnied at the other mares to tell them that they had 2 new herd members. And now that all of the mares were part of the herd, they all whinnied back. And then Midnight had his herd. It had been almost a year now. And one day, 2 of his mares laid down. Midnight was, of course, worried about them, came over to smell them, then realized that day both of his mares had a colt. One named her colt Apples, and the other named hers Brownie. Now Midnight had a herd with his 3 mares that he loved very much. Also, his 2 colts and his filly, which would soon become a mare. And that's the story of the herd.